Dynamite download.
AEW 2020, John Silver.
Special event, as you can see, SPD.
For a splashing good time. January recruitment month for them.
I come along, I come along in the ring.
I mean, I would not want that. I would not want that. Great this year at SPD. Boy, weird.
Yeah.
I was trying to play I'm better than you and you know it. All right. Welcome to Friday
What's up,
Night
guys?
Fights, everybody.
What's
Friday
up,
Night
fellas?
Fights and Fights. Cheers to the weekend. It
Hell
is
yes,
Oberon
son.
season,
Hell
baby.
yes, dude,
Oberon
dude.
season here in Michigan. Cheers.
Not for me. I had a beautiful filet mignon for dinner, and I'm going with the stout. It complements the nice, relaxing evening. I had a little red wine earlier. Crayfish is already
Wow.
feeling loose. So
Wow.
life's good here, fellas. I'm excited for tonight.
I got
I'm
the
gonna say-
classic vodka soda, which will
Let me
hopefully
get
last
that-
more
hey,
than
can
half
you
the show
show
this
off-
time.
Show off the size of that vodka soda real quick.
That's in a Stein. That's in
Yeah.
a typical German beer mug for everyone. Cheers, Amanda, Brian, and Katie.
Cheers,
Thank you
everybody.
for joining us to the
I
weekend.
have a feeling that I had to ease into this night, right? Because we had
I gotta get you one of these bonds.
Yeah.
we had our weekly poll, and Britt Baker was the word of the night, fellas. So
Nope. There was a
Actually-
comeback.
You missed it. There was a
I
last
missed
minute
it.
twist.
what
And
happened?
it's actually Thunder.
Rosa.
You guys had to sabotage that poll, didn't you?
No.
Well,
We
I'm
checked
honored
and
either
she
way.
had a
We're going to talk a
50%
lot about
win.
the main event. That main event was game changing for the landscape of AEW. It was something that SPD and I really bond. Even before I think at day one, we've been from the minute
know.
that song. The minute we heard that song, SPD, we knew we were dealing with a superstar, weren't we?
You know, yeah. I mean, you could just see it on their face. I mean, you can tell when someone has it, and we've talked about that before. And you know, people have come and gone, and they've trickled out, but like consistently, you can see that Thunder has the it factor. And like
just
you
said
said
it.
on our show, checked all the boxes, man.
Absolutely. That's
And,
one of the
you know,
things that
yeah.
we hear Bonds, and I'd love to hear you a little bit talk about your thoughts on that match because
Yeah.
Sean and I, we had a whole video package of how much we've talked about Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker and how
Oh,
much
geez.
we here at Dynamite Download have been vocal advocates for that feud. You know that even though you and I are diehard Cleveland Browns fans, we still love ourselves the DMD.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you're kind of the middleman, right? Like
Yeah.
SPD is clearly Team Thunder. Even though I love Thunder Rosa, don't get me wrong, I love Thunder Rosa, and I'm getting you guys hammered apparently. Sorry.
Oh gosh, you said it twice.
Not on purpose. I was mentally preparing to say the other opponent. I tend to be on one side of the fence a little bit more, and SPD is definitely on the other side of the fence. And I feel like as our lead writer, you always do a nice job in your columns of trying to navigate and see the strengths of both performers. Tell us what your thoughts were. I mean, for those who didn't get a chance to read your column, what were some of your takeaways from that main event, man?
Oh, it was a great main event. That was my biggest takeaway. I had nothing to criticize, which was awesome. That doesn't happen very often. There's usually something that you can say was bad in the match, but there was nothing from start to finish. It was intense. It was a blood feud again. Like I've been saying this, they hate each other, and it was awesome to watch them take it out on each other in the ring. You know, the fact that both of them showed color too in the main event on TV.
That's saying something.
Like
I
that was a
mean,
pay-per-view level what they did. I mean, you can make an argument that was bigger than anything that happened at Revolution, which is pretty crazy. That match just was a great match.
I'd be more than
Yeah.
happy to hear somebody else make that argument because SPD and I have been claiming really. I'll put it out there. I mean, I've said that this is the feud in professional wrestling. This is the hottest feud in all of pro wrestling. I've been saying that well before Beach Break.
Right around like when we interviewed her, you started saying that.
I've been saying it, dude. I mean, when it comes to all the boxes, guys. I mean, that match was exactly what we needed to see.
For sure.
We know that Thunder. Jeez, guys.
Jeez. Starting off with a bang.
That's why I got a big cup.
That was smart. I needed to have just like 8 beers next to me apparently because that's
why I'm
going
by
to be
my
a
window,
tough
too.
one.
When I have beers, it's a fridge window.
Well, you know, I'll ask this right before we and Bonds SPD. We have a whole rate. We have a lot of topics we want to cover.
Right.
But leaving that matchup, I want to ask you both. One, what was your biggest oh my god moment? Because I watched that moment back with my wife. Again, I watched that match and it was great seeing an outsider's perspective and how she reacted, right?
Right.
And I had a lot of those oh my god moments creep up on me seeing the brutality of that match, just watching it again. So what was your biggest oh my god moment? Where do you go from here with this feud? And really, I want to hear Team Thunder, Team DMD. We both agree they're both incredible, but where do you see each of them like pivoting from this match? Really, I mean, this was a huge moment, and you could tie that into the first one. Really, there's 2 big questions. What was your biggest oh my god moment of that match, and where do you take this feud and these 2 characters going forward in AEW?
That is a deep question for sure, and that's one you almost need to sleep on. But it's hard to pick one because the whole match it was filled of them. But like 2 standouts, obviously. I mean, Britt got the worst end of the brutality. I mean, the power bomb on the tax and the double stomp ladder to the face, and so those were
was, man,
Right.
for sure. And it was just. It wasn't what I expected. I had no idea what to expect. They're going to play it was a phenomenal match. I mean, great storytelling, and it was so great that they did that little behind the scenes thing. If you haven't seen it, go on AEW's YouTube page and you can watch the behind the scenes, how everyone was, standing up and clapping for both performers backstage and afterwards. And so those are 2 of my, oh my gosh moments for sure. Where you go from this? I mean, that is deep because I said it before, I don't want this feud to end. This is the feud that really makes you proud to be an AEW fan. I mean, they put a lot of people on notice.
Really well.
They put the whole roster on notice with this match, just like the sacrifice they made, and really showed up and delivered, and then some. I don't know if I don't know. I feel like you still, because Britt, this is not a loss on her record because it was unsanctioned.
by you.
So that's going to be played for that as well. I'm sure that will come into play with that. With Thunder, I feel like you can't just I just feel like this is, even though it was a culmination of months and months and months, and they finally got the payoff that they deserved, which is the main event, which was great to see. How do you pivot from this? I don't know. And I mean, they're both stars. It's a win-win across the board. I said this beforehand, no matter the results of this match, it's a win-win for everyone. Thunder, if the Thunder lost, Britt's going to look strong, and no one's going to look bad in this. So I think whatever you do, someone's got to be in the title picture.
Yeah.
Period.
I think we all agree on that, right, guys?
Yeah.
I mean,
Agreed.
the next step is adding gold to this feud. Is that where you guys see this going?
Definitely.
I don't know if you do the
so.
feud for this, but someone's got to go for gold.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I don't know, Thunder's clearly she's the wrestler of the week. She won the match. She won the first women's main event, and she's not officially signed to AEW. So I don't know what background that ties in. It clearly doesn't matter. Oh, shoot. Clearly it doesn't matter because Tony Khan's the forbidden door.
Yep.
But regardless, that's all I'm going to say is that someone's going to be heading for gold.
That thumbtacks moment, I think, was brutal. I mean, this match was more brutal than I expected. I mean, this was we talked, especially like so close to Revolution and the exploding barbed wire death match. Like this felt like hard to watch at times. It was brutal. These two and the way Britt was just drenched in blood. I mean, AEW and Britt have definitely been pushing that iconic image.
It's a T-shirt. Who would put that on a T-shirt? I mean,
I don't know.
on.
You have to be sick. You have to be sick to want to wear that.
Would you rather wear the Britt Baker bloody face T-shirt or Pac naked in the rain that you almost did?
I don't know. They're my two favorites. I would gladly wear both, I guess. They're both amazing. I absolutely. Well, you know what? You said it. You brought up Pac. We have a lot of topics, but one of our guest topics that jumped in and Bonds. I want to hear
Bonds' take on the
I want to hear your main event, but we're going to get into Pac later on in the show.
So again, I think that you mentioned both of the big ones, SPD, but the smirk was just awesome too. Just the smirk on TV with the crimson face mask. Oh, that was awesome. And I think that two big time stars were made in this match. I think that a lot of people saw just, wow, this was awesome. And that was an iconic moment for that. We're going to see that picture for years to come. But the second tack spot was also brutal, where Thunder rolled her onto the tacks. That was great. And you got a drink. But that was an awesome moment as well.
No, that's a great and that was one of those like hidden moments, right?
Yeah, I missed it.
Britt she locks in the lockjaw, right? And and for me as a Britt fan, I'm thinking, oh my God, how badass is Britt that she's locked in her finisher after her whole back is covered in thumbtacks at this point. She locks in her finisher, but to what we've always talked about since we interviewed Thunder is like that. Jeez, oh my God, my cheeks are going to be as red as my hat at the end of the night. But her ability
when I'm drinking, guys,
to roll into the thumbtacks so that Britt has to let go of the submission. Really smart stuff.
Yeah,
I loved that moment. Watching it back a second time, that was one of my. I really appreciated that moment, Bonds. I thought that was a really smart call by you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was
one of those psychology moments in a fight where you're just like, wow, that was pretty impressive stuff. I don't know. For me, my biggest oh my God moment, obviously, I felt like that powerbomb in the tax was brutal. That was hard to watch.
It was.
There were moments where seeing Britt and just the amount of blood, it was hard to see that, to see what she was going through the whole time. I liked the character work on watching it back a second and third time. I watched this match 3 times. I think that the most impressive part of all this, guys, is to me the fact that both women, as you talked about it, Bonds, both women, we knew that this was going to happen, but both women looked incredible in this match. I mean, Thunder won, which okay, but so many people are buzzing about Britt after this match too, and I think that that's a rare thing that happens in wrestling where we walk away and equally impressed by both competitors. Neither one really took any sort of shine off. If anything, they just both further cemented themselves. I think that this is one of those. I also liked watching back what AEW did, and as far as integrating other characters into this match, and that's something that we talk about a lot here on Dynamite Download, how they layer and bring these different characters to work together and stuff like that. I loved having the cutaway to Sheeta watching the match backstage, Jade sitting up in the crowd with her feet up, chilling, smiling. Jade, I just like how AEW does certain things like that, how they get those layers involved in a feud, and that's what I enjoyed the most out of this whole scenario. Really, leaving this match is there's so many places that they can take all of these characters. If you told me that Britt was going to challenge for the championship next week, I would believe that. If you told me that TR was going to get an opportunity to challenge for it, I would believe that. Jade, there, and that's what I love about the women's division in AEW is, I was watching NXT back today, and they've been really emphasizing the home of the best women's division in the whole world. And it makes me nauseous now when I hear that. And that and I'm not trying to be like controversial. It literally was making me upset. Like they were laying it on thick, guys. The best women's division. And NXT at one point did have the best women's division in all of wrestling. I was a vocal advocate for it years ago.
Right. I know.
Anybody who knows me knows I love Sasha and Bayley and Becky, and I love the Shayna Baszler era and the Asuka era and all those things. AEW's women's division is leaps and bounds better than NXT's right now. And I don't care how people can think that's controversial. I watch both shows. I've been a lifetime wrestling fan. The star power, the feuds, the potential of the characters involved in AEW's women's division versus what I see in NXT right now, it's not close to me personally.
Right.
And I know that a lot of that is charged because of this feud, which is great. But Jade is an undeniable superstar to me. I know that people argue that we haven't seen enough from her in the ring. I think that there are certain characters that you just know. You just know, and she has that. I've argued with SPD. You and I have gone back and forth about Sheeta's championship reign. Whether we look back on Sheeta's championship reign with positive or negative light, more than anything, I think it's because we don't get to see her week in and week out. But whenever we do get to see Sheeta, I think that we're always impressed. So right. I don't know. I think that Serena Deeb, Ty Conti, there's a lot of people in this division that I feel are exciting and we want to see. It's a shame that so many have been injured, Chris Statlander and now Anna Jay and things like that. But there's a lot of potential in this division.
Definitely.
I agree. It's definitely looking up, and it's the last 4 to 6 months, essentially when Thunderwood came on the scene, it's really exploded in the right direction, and I think it's just going to keep going upwards. I mean, it is because they main evented, and I don't know if that's just kind of reading between the lines, but if we saw the cutaway to Jade and Sheeta, is that kind of like the next cross pass of all this happening? So that would be fun. Those 4 stars in the ring together would be absolutely incredible. So I mean, we can talk like our whole thing on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the feud. I mean, you said, and one of my favorite quotes from SPD in the history of Dynamite Download is really like, if you're gonna build a division, you build it around these 2 stars. And you were talking about Thunder and Britt, and
oh geez,
and that is true. But now,
thanks for the reminder.
But now we're starting to see that foundation grow. And I think that like we all here, even though it might be controversial at the time, I think all of us here on this team are willing to put like our stamp of approval on Jade. I think all 3 of us could say AEW has something with her. And the way that they're booking her to this point is very smart. They're definitely protecting her and showcasing her in a way that we believe she can become a foundation to this division. There's just more names emerging than
it's great.
Obviously, I love that Britt and Thunder again. Gosh, man.
Jeez. We knew that was going to be.
They went all out. They went above and beyond expectations. I think that Meltzer gave it 4 3/4 stars. I know he's an AEW fan just like us, but I think universally it was great to see the support that and the positivity around this match. They definitely cemented that the women in AEW deserve that platform and deserve that spotlight. And I think that the more that we see that, the more opportunities these other women are going to get. And I think that there are women in this division that can take advantage of that. I'm excited to see it.
This is a good question brought up in the chat that we can answer before we pivot into one that I really want to talk to is about Inner Circle versus Pinnacle. Who do you think is better and what do you like more? A women's factions. So if you could create a 4-woman faction, 2 of them, a babyface one and a heel one, who would you pick? Just kind of off, not overthinking it. Essentially, I think it would be great to have obviously Thunder lead one and Britt lead one.
Yeah.
In the chat, you guys are talking how you had Reba or Rebel, Britt, Nyla, and Vicky. That would be a very appealing one for awesome heels. And then Thunder, obviously, I think would recruit probably Sheeta. And who else?
Rio. When we saw Rio getting with Sheeta.
Yep.
But I think you need people that could be more vocal
because
in her.
I was thinking I don't think that AEW is ready for this yet, but a women's tag title, right?
Right.
Eventually, I do think that there's going to be a place for that in the landscape of AEW. I think that they're starting to develop those things, and you could already tell maybe Anna Jay and Ty Conti would be a natural pairing, right? Sheeta and Rio could, there's lots of different opportunities where you could start to sneak things in like that. A women's faction, I definitely think if we were to go that route, it would be most interesting if we were to kind of go to parallel what we're seeing with Inner Circle and the Pinnacle, right? Where you have Jericho and MJF as sort of those leads of the factions and those mirror images of each other leading 2 groups against each other. So I do think that if we were to build around Britt versus Thunder, you could certainly see Britt has already got Rebel in her corner. Nyla Rose, she's already kind of established that face-to-face casual understanding of okay, we might not like each other, but let's just whoop some ass together, that type of thing. Right. So you could see that happening. I don't know, man. That's an interesting topic, and I think that we need to see. It's tough. We've talked about this a lot. There's AEW has a lot of content out there, but until all of it bleeds together, and I know they're trying, but they're going to need to continue to emphasize all that product bleeding together into one fluid story. They rewarded those people who watched Elevation like us. I watched Elevation. I saw that Matt Sydal versus Kenny feud kind of building throughout that show, which is now paying off on Dynamite next week. If they do more of that, where they're taking advantage of Elevation and Dark, and they're starting to bleed these shows together, then yes, I could see the women having a little bit more of that. But until we see more Penelope Ford, Ty Conti, there's a lot of characters that are on this show that Red Velvet even is a character that we've seen a little bit of what she's capable of, but until we get to see her week in and week out involved in stories, it's hard to tell where you can go with a faction or a women's tag title. To me,
it's kind of where I stand with it too. There's not. I think it's easier to book a heel faction right now than a face faction because there's already been some stuff that's been kind of in the background going on. But a face faction would be kind of tough. I think there's not enough people tied together in storylines to make it more than just, oh, look, these are the good guys teaming up.
Yeah, I think that the way that it would make the most sense, me personally, is if you start to integrate some of these talented women with and showcase them with already existing characters on the show. If you have, I know that there are a lot of people who are clamoring for an LAX type of vibe with Diamante, Ivelisse, potentially Thea Trinidad. You start to bring in some of that with like Santana and Ortiz or something like that vibe.
Right.
If you start to pair up some of these women with existing characters on the show and get them more exposure, like what we've seen, for me, I miss Anna Jay. I think that Anna Jay was just starting to come into her own as a wrestler and as a character. And it sucks that she got injured like she did. I think that there was something really developing there with the Dark Order. But I think that's where they really need to start going too, is like taking advantage of existing characters and storylines and injecting more relationships. That's where AEW really, to me, AEW really stands out amongst all other professional wrestling, where they highlight the relationships of these characters. It's not just about, I'm going to fight you because I'm a good guy and you're a bad guy. There's a lot of this, like, I'm aligned with Taz, or there's these, I'm friends with John, Kingston's a great example, right? Like the way that his character has grown and changed, his relationship with Moxley, his relationship with Butcher and Blade. You see all these things start to go. That's where the AEW really, really, I think, blows up. That's where they're so talented. We need to see more character stuff like that, personally, with the women.
Right.
That's what I want to see. I want to see more women involved in in-depth storylines, seeing those characters interact with each other, stuff like that.
Yeah, agreed. I think that you could easily add women to a lot of existing factions as well. So there's already some natural stuff. I mean, Brian Cage might be leaving Team Taz. Like, you could replace him with a
lot of people want Layla,
awesome.
right? A lot of people are clamoring for Layla Hirsch to be in Team Taz. I mean, that just seems like such a natural fit, right? Fit. She's got that human suplex machine vibe.
Do it, Mike. Yeah.
I don't know how anybody doesn't like this group. I don't know.
It's good for your back, bro.
Oh yeah, you got to dance with Mitch, bro.
Mitch is all in, bro. Mitch is all in. He makes his special appearances when we get Jungle Boy involved. That's really his favorite.
Guys, let us know if you would buy a Mitch shirt if we put it in our merchandise shop that's coming. Let us know. Do you want a Mitch shirt? Let us know on all of our comments on Twitter, on Instagram. Demand Mitch.
Everybody, you made it to the weekend. That's, to me,
That's dance worthy for sure.
That is dance
Mitch Ellico. I like that. Mitch Ellico. That sounds like a beer.
Oh man, I'm taking the hat off.
So this is one I proposed. Yeah, this is one I proposed to you guys like a couple hours ago. It just kind of came to me. I'm like, now that we have this massive swerve with the Pinnacle forming, which I gave a little shout out to MJF on our show a couple days ago, and I put it on Instagram how his spray tan was, pretty bad. So, and it was running on his ears, almost as bad as Rudy Giuliani's hair dye. But he, the Pinnacle forming just honestly seems like an unstoppable group. Inner Circle was an unstoppable group. I mean, with Le Champion leading the way, they were just full of complete badasses top to bottom. And now that we see the Pinnacle forming, it's becoming more and more clear that this group is the top dog of AEW. And so I had a question for you, like, who do you like more? I mean, it's easy to like a fresh group. Inner Circle's the OG. They're like the original faction of AEW, other than the elite being the elite essentially. So do you think like
in AEW is a great question, honestly.
Well, but like, who do you prefer? I mean, who do you think is the more dominant group, and who do you like more, Pinnacle, or do you like the Inner Circle more?
I think that's a little maybe premature. Frankly, we need to see what they do. I want to see what Pinnacle does. I know that they're just a ton of talent together, but you can put the most talented guys together and it doesn't work. You never know how it goes. You got egos and stuff, man. So things might not go as smooth as it looks. We don't have
MJF as a leader is tough to get behind for sure. I
Scary.
understand where you're coming from.
Exactly. And
There's
and
nobody
I
like
think Jericho's a more solid, stable leader for sure.
yeah, I get where you're going with that, Bonds, because like honestly, that's the one thing, and he's like the cornerstone of that group, right? But like MJF has already proven that he doesn't really care about anybody but himself. And like we've talked about it. When are MJF and Wardlow gonna break up, right? When is that gonna happen? Like
Now it's not.
I wouldn't be shocked if you told me next week's episode of Dynamite that MJF turned on somebody in Pinnacle and kicked them out of the group. I wouldn't be surprised if he did that. You know what I mean? He got that kind of character. So it is hard to say, oh, I love this group when their foundation is really based on quicksand. I mean, MJF is just not somebody who you can like rely on at all. I love the guy, and he's incredibly talented and awesome at what he does, but he's also proven that relationships don't work well with him unless they serve his own needs. That said, for me, like Pinnacle, like I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, for me, like MJ, I love Wardlow. I think that the minute I saw Wardlow on AEW, I knew this dude, like this guy was going to be, he had the it factor. Like he's the real deal. He has that look. And then when we get to see him in the ring, his power, his athleticism, the stuff that he's willing to do. I think that Wardlow is a bona fide superstar. You guys both know, I mean, for years now, I've said it. I think that FTR is the best tag. I know that that's their catchphrase, and that's kind of their whole gimmick is that they're the best tag team in the world. Right. I believe that they are. I genuinely love what they do. I love their style. I love how they don't reinvent the wheel. They stick to the basics, and they make the basics matter. I feel like, when I was a kid, the DDT was one of the more feared finishers in all of wrestling, and now it's a transition move. And there's something to be said for guys who, I don't know, who appreciate and respect this, like the importance of a lot of this, of a lot of the psychology and the thoughtfulness and I think the purpose and planning of a match. And so, I mean, if I could put together a dream group, there's a lot to love about this. I truly believe that MJF. He spit. I know at SPD you were very caught on that spray tan, and you had a hard time getting past the spray tan. But when you listen back to what MJF's promo, the content of that promo, and how fired up he was, the man delivered nothing but truth bombs. I mean, it was just like
right.
Wardlow is the most like dominant look big man. I mean, when you talk about insurance policy, I don't know. I personally am all in on the Pinnacle. I love that group. And that I don't want to be kind of like a fair weather fan. I love Inner Circle. I think that Proud and Powerful I'm still fans of them. I think that they've only gotten better. Ortiz's character work and his ability to emote. Santana, you could tell, is really become a workhorse in the ring. I just think that the Pinnacle is the future. I think this group has got a lot of upside.
It's hard to disagree. They're just built on upside. That's the whole point. They're going to be the most talented stable in wrestling, and it's not about the talent. I think is the point. I think the point. Any negative is just about their leadership and what have you done lately kind of thing as well. So it's. You could look at it a lot of different ways. I think it's going to be a great feud with them in Inner Circle, though. It's going to be the best thing going in wrestling very soon.
Bonds, what are you most excited about as far as potential matchup? I mean, I personally, as a tag team guy, I'm geeking out about FTR versus Proud and Powerful. I'm really excited about that being a feud, and I think that those matches could be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But
they haven't gotten the ring together, have they?
No, and I'm a tag team guy, so I'm really, and those are two veteran teams, right? Those are two teams that are going to be proud guys, powerful guys, top guys. I like that, and I think that they're gonna both meet in the middle, and they're not gonna back down. After what happened with that beatdown, that the swagger, the pride, like that edge that Santana and Ortiz have, I got a feeling that they're gonna be like, no doubt. I mean, like, I got a feeling that they're gonna come back with a vengeance. So I'm really geeked about FTR versus Proud and Powerful, but like, that's one potential matchup out of all this stuff, man. And it's really not even right? MJF versus Jericho is the marquee one. But what are you most geeked about, Bonds, out of all the potential matchups?
I'd love to see an unleashed Wardlow against Jake Hager. Because when they wrestled last time, they were still part of Inner Circle. They were together. Like, they weren't. You could argue they weren't going full bore. You know, they were trying to fight each other, but they weren't going full bore. Now that they hate each other,
they were a friend. They were supposed to be in the same team. Yeah,
yeah. Now they're not on the same team. They're not. They're trying to hurt each other. They're going out there and like want to kill each other. So I think that'll be an awesome match. And that's just one. Again, that's one of many. There's so many different options we have now. You have Sean Spears, and Sean Spears is gonna. Who's he gonna wrestle? Is he gonna wrestle Sammy? He could wrestle Hager too. You never know. There's a lot of different matchups.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to think, Bonds. Like, obviously, Mind Runner throws out Sammy versus MJF, and that's something that, like, dude, that has been like that we've all wanted to see that, right? Yeah. The whole relationship with the Inner Circle, we've all wanted to see that. But after Sean Spears booted Sammy's face through a chair, you got a feeling that Sammy's going to want a little Sean Spears too, right? I mean, he's going to want some of that. So I don't know,
It'll be
man.
Nice to see Sammy back in the ring for sure. And Wardlow's. We just need. I mean, we pegged him for the Breakout Star 2021. It'll be nice that he got. It was great that he got the powerbomb on Jericho. And I think hopefully this will start to surge him to the moon. I mean, I feel like we're not going to see many. I mean, I guess we're seeing it this next coming Dynamite with a non-feud match, but the Inner Circle has to respond tomorrow or next Dynamite. Jericho cutting a promo. I think this is just bringing a reigniting the love that I have for the Inner Circle. Now that they're going to be baby faces, Jericho is already living up to the Judas singing, now he can just eat it in. He's good. He is one of the best that can go both ways, baby and heel. And I think down the line, what's going to need to happen is ultimately, I mean, Jericho has been in the ring more than anyone in the Inner Circle, period. Overall, like his career in AEW.
You're right.
Who has wrestled more than them? Even if you count Darks, essentially, PNP haven't been on Dark too much. Sammy's been on Dark a little bit. Hager hasn't wrestled that much. So Jericho's leading by example. That being said, Tully is not a wrestler. He's like the mouthpiece. Is Jared? Do they need to recruit another person? I was listening to the Talk is Jericho with Paul White, and what if they brought in some heavy muscle, heavy machinery to kind of help them out down the line, because if they're just showing that they're getting beat time after time, which would do good for the Pinnacle to build them up, then Inner Circle needing to recruit another member to really kind of put them over the top. So just the ideas of these 10, 11, 12 people who are involved in this is just going to be absolutely gold. I'm more excited. I don't know if I'm more excited for the promo battles between Jericho and MJF or the matches itself, because they're both. It's just so many different dynamics and layers to this feud. This battle between
you love whenever MJF and Jericho are on the mic. You love that.
You're right. If you're a wrestling fan, how could you not?
Those are gonna be some epic promo battles, and when Jericho comes back after that beating, that he's gonna cut like just the on fire promo. And on Bonds, I know that you were really emphasizing, like, man, MJF went hard at Jericho with the hairline and the pec separation and every he was just going all in on attacking him personally. I got Jericho's got some comedy up his sleeve, and he's gonna come at MJF.
That was what made me think.
He could talk to SPD. He's got some stuff going against MJF right now.
I mean, like we said before, I mean, we all know, if you're fans of Dynamite Download, that we are the drizzling shits from MJF, and so
Said it.
now MJF is the drizzling spray tan. So I need to make a new one that the Dynamite Download think he is at the drizzling spray tan. But that got me thinking, Mind Runner, when I was listening to the Talk is Jericho with the Big Show, No More BS, Paul White, like it would be appealing down the line. Like they trade wins, they trade battles, and ultimately Inner Circle starts to get beat up more and more and more. And then they need some kind of power like that and really start to lay down the law. And I mean, I'm sure the wrestling community will talk smack because of the negativity. Oh, it's just another WWE tag team, anything like that. But who cares, man? It's going to be great.
You know what? And those people, like, I have a hard time not engaging on stuff like this. I really have a hard time. I try not to, but like, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see that all AEW uses their veterans across the board to try to establish new stars. I don't think, like, am I like living in a bizarro world or something? I mean, like Matt Hardy is with Private Party and now Butcher and Blade. Like you see, like all of across the board, MJF is now with Tully, and Tully kind of serves as that like mentor to that group, right? Jericho has Pride and Power. Like Sammy has always been his Sex Gods, have always like he's always had that younger star. I don't understand how people don't see that, and I think this is a great example. If you throw Big Show into this one, eventually that's going to lead to Big Show versus Wardlow. I mean, that's going to lead to
that would be great.
Big man versus big man. And can you imagine the visual of Wardlow getting that big fella up on his shoulders?
F10ing Big Show.
Yeah. Or that would be, I mean, I'm sure he could do it, but it would elevate him to the absolute next level. And that's what they need because as JR says, and we see an absolute star in Wardlow. But I mean, that's another one of these hot topics in which we're going to love week in and week out for many, many, many months. And that's just another just fresh cycle of stuff after an amazing pay-per-view of Revolution. And that kind of like, Lori had a great question, which ties into one of ours that we were going to talk about, the Team Taz turmoil. Yeah. And then Scoot was saying that like an odd comment, Lori's question was about an uncharacteristic duo that could actually work. And Scoot was saying, you mentioned Sting and Cage. So like that kind of ties it all in together. Like, what do you see happening? What's going to happen with this Team Taz? Is Cage, is he going to still be part of this? Or, Bonds, I'll throw it to you since you're such a Team Taz supporter.
Yeah.
What did you take out of that promo? Because so much happened. You got Darby essentially doing an open challenge. You had Lance and Jake getting in the face of Sting. And then Team Taz comes out and Cage kind of like pushes his team aside and just, appreciates the icon and respects the icon as one should. So where do you think specifically Team Taz stands right now?
Well, I mean, Taz tweeted after the show, selfish, self-serving, things like that. He was really digging in on Brian Cage. He's not happy. So there's going to be repercussions for Brian Cage going against Taz. There's not this isn't going to end pretty.
See that tweet.
It's never
Ricky
good.
Starks is being vocal too, no doubt.
Yeah. I haven't seen
about
Ricky
Cage?
said, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that a big thing is going to just be there might be some infighting here, and that'll be fun. I mean, could you imagine Powerhouse Hobbs fighting Brian Cage?
We've won it.
Now that would be awesome.
We've
Or
won
Ricky
it.
Starks going against Brian Cage. There's a lot of things you could do here, and if Brian Cage ends up, teaming up with Taz or Sting at some point. Who knows? Maybe you see Taz get in the ring with Sting. I don't know. There's a lot of cool stuff you could do. Because, Taz has done a couple bumps on people, and it's not like he's unable to move in the ring. He could probably still do a couple things. Like Sting's 60 years old and still moving around. So there's some stuff that you could potentially do. It'd be fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
And just having like another team match. Like you had the street fight where you had an older guy with Darby, and then you could do something similar. But again, I think with just Brian Cage himself, you have to remember this guy was Impact World Champion. Like he's not a young up and coming guy. He's a veteran that's been around. He can speak for himself. And I think that he's different from everybody else in Team Taz in that sense, where he's been established star elsewhere. He's a guy that's not a young guy. He's a guy that's a true vet. That's a champion worthy guy. He was champion at Impact. I mean, until AEW came around, they're the second biggest wrestling company in the United States. So that's a big deal. And I think that's probably why it was him that went against what was going on. In storyline, it makes sense.
Yep.
And there's a lot of stuff you could do with that. And when it comes to just the two random people teaming up as well, you could see some cool stuff. But I would love to see. I lost it. You continue.
You think about that one. Let's talk about the Team Taz turmoil.
Lost it. Dang it.
I'll jump in about the Team Taz turmoil real quick, and you can think about your random pairing, because there's a lot of different styles that you could see in AEW, different characters, how they would interact with each other. That's a great question. And you can go with it a lot of different ways. Do you want to pair a guy who's like an established star up with a young up-and-comer? Lots of different things. So we can talk about that as a topic on its own.
Yeah.
Team Taz for sure. The thing is that this group has been solely focused. They've been obsessed with Darby. Yeah. And when they fell short at Revolution in that street fight, it felt like they've hit a wall as a team, and that it makes sense that they would step back and maybe have a little bit self-assessment of where they're going, how they stack up in the landscape of AEW. And as you said, Bonds, Brian Cage is a veteran himself. Maybe he sees now, all right, we had this match. We went through hell. You won. Like, I got to give another fellow veteran his props, So I like where you're going with that, brother. I think that there's a lot of credibility to a Brian Cage singles run, potentially breaking away from Team Taz and being a babyface. I think that there's some legs there. His offense is incredibly exciting. There's a lot that you could get behind with Cage. And I know there's a lot of us, there's a lot of us who when we look at the landscape of AEW, you start to wonder, like, okay, who could emerge as the next big face of that company? And there's a lot of great heels in AEW, but Brian Cage could be a nice potential, especially with Lance Archer pivoting now to being more of the heel.
We don't know what's going on with him. He's still coming out the babyface tunnel.
Yeah, I know. You pick up on those
Cage,
dynamics. Yeah.
I think ultimately, very soon, if Cage is going to break away, he's going to essentially piss on the FTW belt and say rip it in half, like he's had done. Rip that belt in half.
Eats it. He crunches up and eats the title.
Yeah. So he'll do something with that title just to kind of get rid of it. And I didn't watch Dark. Did he have the belt?
Yeah. So I watched Dark, and really it was Cage and Starks against Janela and Sonny Kiss, and the turmoil kind of came where it was just like I kind of pointed out as my initial reaction from the street fight was, man, Cage was really carrying this duo of Cage and Starks. Like, Cage was really like the focal point in that match of, like, because he's this big badass dude, right? And so, like, he was taking most of the offense during that street fight, and the same thing happened in the tag match. Like, Cage was doing most of the work. Starks kind of in his typical fashion kind of tries to sneak in and get the finish at the end, get the glory. And you could tell it kind of bugged Cage. It kind of rubbed him the wrong way. And that was sort of the seeds getting planted where you could tell both of these guys have big egos. I mean, both of them, Cage has had an established career, but Ricky Starks, dude, like, we know that guy, we picked him as one of our breakout stars this year.
Yeah. For sure.
And a big part of that is because of his charisma and his ego, right? He's not he's his own biggest fan, So when you have a guy like that, just like we talked about with the Pinnacle, with MJF, when you have a guy who's really that bit, like, he's his own biggest fan, he's his own, like, he's really only out for himself. It's only a matter of time before that starts to rub people the wrong way,
Yeah. And I think that's a good transition to talk about another question that we got on there. Pac, your favorite. So, what do you like to see? I mean, I think I know this answer, but do you like to see Pac in a tag team with someone as exciting as Phoenix, or do you like him as a solo guy?
I mean, I'm not going to complain about him being with Phoenix, right? I mean, I agree with you, SPD. I know you're a diehard Phoenix guy, and their offense together is a lot of fun to watch. But I think that Pac is, I think that he's a single star. I think that his entire career I've watched him. I think that he's a focal point. He's the type of guy you could build around. Believable as a potential world champ. One of the only guys in the entire company that's proven that he could beat Kenny Omega.
True.
So I don't know. I personally think that if we talked about, if I was fantasy booking, Pac would be in the world title hunt. The Lucha Brothers would be in the tag title hunt. You'd be building towards the Golden Triangle, and that would be the way that things would go for those guys. I think that it's interesting how AEW has sort of shifted this, where it's Pac and Phoenix, and then Penta is kind of breaking out as the singles guy. It's interesting how they're starting to shuffle that a little bit. Definitely not what I was expecting. Excited to see where it goes, given that we get to see Pac and Phoenix get a tag title shot. And I'm loving Penta's personality that he's showing.
He's got the strut.
I like that, right? But I think that Pac is definitely the man is born to be in the world title hunt. He's just that good, personally.
True. Yeah, I think so too as well. Like, it's fun because I mean the guy can talk the talk and walk the walk at the same time. This picture with Penta is hilarious. Like, the amount of memes and photo ops that he did, his personality definitely showed in that match with Cody. But I love the combo of Pac and Phoenix for sure. Those are two of some of the best wrestlers in the world. But Pac is, I think, better as a solo guy. And so I think it would be better for him to be solo, and then the Death Triangle actually to be the Death Triangle and keep the Lucha Bros back together, because they haven't fought together in many, many months. And they're just too good not to be together. So I think you can't reignite the Lucha Bros anytime soon, just because they just formed essentially Pac and Phoenix, and they won all this. So the Death Triangle is going to be just a death line, because you have just two dots. You can't complete the triangle yet, so it's going to be that for now, which is fine.
All three guys are so good as singles and individual like competitors too, though. That's what's cool, right? I mean, Phoenix is. I mean, SPD, you talked about it. Phoenix has become like an Iron Man on AEW television. Mm-hmm. He's wrestling week after week after week, and it's because like the guy is so fun to watch. He can work with any size competitor. You see him go against a guy like Lance Archer, and then the next week you see him. It just next week. I mean, he can go with any different type of style with and Helico. Like, I know Bonds, you really liked that blend of backgrounds and wrestling techniques, and that, like, I don't know, man. I think that all three can go. That's what makes this beautiful, right? And I think that's what naturally we've talked about so many times is like a trios title. These guys have shown that they can do tag work. They've shown that they can do singles work. They are the goal. The Death Triangle is the perfect example of why a trios title makes so much sense in AEW. If they're going to introduce a new belt to this company, that is such a home run. It just makes so much sense given the landscape of what they have, you know?
Absolutely. I hope we really are clamoring and hoping for a trios belt to really put just more gold on TV. It's fun. I mean, it just adds more stuff. I mean, the FTW belt was kind of a flop, but anyways, we digress with that, and we come to a special point is our booking by Bonds point. And so I know last week we had Miro's Revenge refill. All right, so hold on. I guess what we should do a quick little hype. Let me see if I have
the Big Show's old theme. Mike loves that song. It's his favorite.
I'm coming.
I forgot who said it in our chat on Wednesday, but that joke had me laughing all week. Like, how does the Big Show like his steak? And it was, well, I'm trying to get the theme song up. That was a hilarious joke. Please, if you're in the chat now, please let me know who did that joke.
Claim
Because that was,
your joke.
Claim the joke because I absolutely love that. It's hilarious.
Well, it's
Big Show. Tonight, y'all. Well, it's a big show.
Dude, thank you for that joke, man. That was great. Yeah.
You gotta play the "Get Ready for Something You'll Never Know" part.
How does the
That's
Big
my
Show
favorite
like
part of the
his?
song.
How does the Big Show like his steak?
Get ready for something that you'll never know.
I love that.
It's so good. So, are you guys ready for Booking by Bonds? This is gonna be a big one.
Yeah, I got my drink. I'm excited, man. I got my second drink. I'm pumped, dude. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Awesome. So this one's about Eddie Kingston and his feud that would be potentially going on with Butcher and Blade and Matt Hardy.
Okay.
So we saw some stuff happen at Revolution. Eddie Kingston basically abandoned Butcher and Blade. They were teaming up for the last couple of weeks. And man, or the last couple of months even, and it just died out of nowhere. And they were really doing well. They had some good matches together. They had a lot of chemistry. And this is just some background before we start the feud, but there's a lot of cool stuff, and just kind of left. It was gone. Now they're with Matt, and I was a little frustrated because we saw TH2 with them for a bit, but I think it works. It's going to work, and because Matt's able to work with anybody. That's just kind of his thing. He's the big card.
Truth is the truth.
That's where this goes. So early on, like, we're going to see Eddie Kingston finish his feud with Kenny, and that's going to be kind of done right at this point. So he's going to kind of, I don't know how it's going to end, but it's just over. I don't want to do 2 Booking by Bonds this week.
Not yet.
This is what's going on while the feud's happening with Kenny. So Matt's starting to recruit people. Matt Hardy is starting to recruit more people to be clients. I need more money. I lost all my money to Hangman Page. I need more money. I have to keep getting recruits. I'll keep getting people on contracts. So he's going around asking people like, hey, you want to work for me? Look at all this money I'm making, Private Party and Butcher and Blade. Look what's going on. So he's just going around asking people, you guys want a contract? This is a great idea. You guys work for me and you'll help me out and I'll help you out. I'll get you all the big matches, So he goes up to Eddie Kingston at one point, and Eddie Kingston's like, I don't want any of your carny BS. I know what you gave Butch and Blade a terrible contract, and I don't want to work with you guys. But the second he mentions Butcher and Blade, Matt Hardy, the wheels start turning in his head. He's like, oh, wait a minute. I have something here. Like, because I don't need to sign Eddie Kingston. Maybe I can get some money from Eddie Kingston by egging him on a little bit. Ooh, the sun's out, Mike.
I'm trying to get my tan like MJF. I didn't go to
You got to get the spray tan, bro. So next week on Dynamite, after he approaches Eddie, Butcher, Blade each have a singles match, and Bunny is a singles match. So they all get on TV. And so
That's
Matt
cool.
Hardy, after the last of the matches, comes out and he goes, look what I do for my friends. I get them paid. I get them on TV. Like, what do you do, Eddie Kingston? You abandon your friends.
Wow.
At the first sign of weakness, you abandon your friends and you go back to John Moxley because he's a main eventer. All this stuff, he calls him out. And he does this for a little while. It takes a lot to get under Eddie Kingston's skin. You know what I mean? So it goes on for a couple of weeks where he's like, hey, what are you doing, Eddie? Are you going to abandon more of your friends? Like, he's just egging him on. So eventually he's like, dude, what do you do? I don't want to join you. Leave me alone. And he's like, oh, I don't want you to join us. I want you to beat us. And that's what Matt Hardy does. He's like, I want you to beat us. That's what I want. I want you to fight us on TV. That's what I want from you. I want from you, Eddie Kingston. I want you to beat all of us. So every week he wrestles like Mark Quinn, Isaiah Cassidy, Butch, and then he wrestles Blade. And there's a lot of interference in this match. And at the end, they end up Eddie gets counted out. And he's like, man, I just want to fight you, Matt. That's who I want to fight. And he's like, no, that's not going to happen. So basically, Matt Hardy's like, I'm not going to fight you in a singles match. I'm going to fight you in a TLC match. All right, we got to drink one.
You're still full there, Bonds.
I refilled it. It was half gone. So Double or Nothing's coming up in May, the end of May. And we're going to see in this booking by Bonds, we're going to see a Tornado Trios TLC match.
Oh.
So it's going to be Butcher, Blade, and Matt Hardy against Eddie Kingston and whoever he wants to be on his team. Because it doesn't matter. He just wants the bill. That's the whole point. He's like the ultimate carny. He doesn't care if he wins. He just wants to be on the card.
Yeah.
So he's fabricating this huge feud with Eddie Kingston. This whole time it's not a real thing. He's egging him on. He's saying, he wants the cash. Butcher and Blade are taking it more seriously, but they're not the one, Matt's getting 30% for nothing. He's getting TV time and all this other stuff. So he's just trying to get a paycheck. So over the next couple of weeks before the pay-per-view, Eddie Kingston, nobody knows who he's teaming up with. He doesn't announce it. He just like, now you guys can get it yourselves. It's fine. You'll figure it out when it's on the pay-per-view. He does it a little bit before that, but through that whole time, you have Matt still recruiting people. So he's kind of setting up like, oh man, maybe Eddie Kingston's going to pick this guy. Maybe he talks to Brian Cage. He talks to John Moxley. You know what I mean? He's like, hey, I want you guys to join us. We can make this a quads match. Why not? This will be great. You could be in here. He goes up to Lance Archer. Lance just looks at him and he doesn't say anything. Just get out of my face. Because Lance doesn't want his time wasted. All this other stuff. So he goes with the Christian, all these guys. Yep. So throughout this whole thing, before that, you saw, because Christian's involved in the Kenny feud. So Eddie got some work with Christian before that. So that's kind of a natural assumption one. And so it's going to be Mox, because Mox just wants to kick Matt Hardy's butt. He doesn't care. He just like, I don't like you. I'm gonna beat you in a big match and TLC match. And then Christian, who wrestled against Matt Hardy a bunch in WWE, and would be something that would be you'd be able to bill that huge. It'd be awesome. So in the pay-per-view, you're going to have a TLC match against you with two of the top guys that made ladder matches popular.
That's
back in the day. And I'm going to have Kingston go over on Matt Hardy to end the feud, but it's kind of a short feud for a build-up to a pay-per-view that makes logical sense, and you could have a great match. And that might be Christian's debut match on pay-per-view, or it would be on pay-per-view, but his debut match in general. I want to see him before that. That's a couple months down the line. But you could maybe build him with Kenny and then have him in this big pay-per-view where he can not take every bump, obviously, because there's 6 guys in the match. So you kind of protect Christian, and you get Eddie Kingston a bunch of TV time with Matt Hardy. You get Butcher and Blade in this pay-per-view. And everybody comes out of it looking strong, because Butcher and Blade don't look weak if they lose, because Moxley and Christian are top guys, and so is Eddie Kingston. You build this in a way to where nobody looks bad coming out of it. Kingston looks great coming out of it because he got a win over Matt Hardy, who's a big-time heel right now. And you can kind of maybe move that into a different storyline while you move Mox back into something else, or in Christian into something else, obviously, because they were only really approached because of their name value. Like, hey, I want to get you guys on my team because I'm Matt Hardy. I want the big bucks. So it just kind of turns into this whole Matt Hardy's looking for any amount of money he can get. And he doesn't care if he loses. I think that's the kind of important thing. He just wants to be in there to get the payday. And it'd be kind of cool. And obviously, it's not as long as some of the other ones, but you have some potential with Butcher and Blade there with Matt as well. Like, maybe he's not taking it as seriously as they are, because who knows how they're feeling about it. They haven't cut any promos about this yet on television. They haven't talked about it. So there's nothing on their end. So you could even maybe bring that back as the catalyst for the storyline. And I think that'd be really fun and interesting. What do you guys think?
I love hearing you draw on the history of Christian and Hardy, and it speaks to something that would make sense from an AEW perspective. I don't think that AEW has ever shied away from leaning into the history of these performers. They don't insult our intelligence as fans. They know that we know the history, that we're fans. I love the idea of a Christian versus Matt Hardy concept and building. Obviously, what we're seeing right now with AEW, with Moxley and Kingston, and how they're being involved with Kenny. Christian's obviously involved with Kenny. I think that there's some undertones of like, okay, how does this work again with that? But as AEW has shown, they are more than willing to have multiple storylines with these characters going on at the same time. You could in some way, you just talked about different trios. You could have Christian, Mox, and Kingston, but you could also have Kenny and the Good Brothers involved in that in some way, shape, or form as well too, where they're not letting Kingston, Mox, and Christian off the hook. And then you're not losing this slow build of what we see of Christian versus Omega being something that AEW is trying to build around in the future. I think that this could still work with that in tandem. I think that's a really smart idea by you. And obviously seeing Christian and Hardy with a ladder or a TLC type of scenario would bring back a lot of nostalgia in a good way. I think it would play off of that. You know, I've been really wanting to see AEW address the Butcher and Blade Eddie Kingston breakup a little bit more than just, hey, like, I mean, Bonds, you explained it really well. Like, Kingston's moving on to be in a more personal feud where he's latched onto a friendship with Mox, and he's leaving behind this business relationship. But AEW hasn't really addressed a lot of that on screen as much. And, you know, even to the point when Mox was when Kingston was rushing out to save Mox, Butcher and Blade were in the background when that happened. And so you see, like,
pushed him away pretty hard.
Right. So I would like to see that addressed. I think that makes a lot of sense what you're doing. This would benefit if they leaned into, okay, how do Butcher and Blade feel about being cast aside by Kingston? Is Kingston able to navigate somebody who has proven, like Hardy, to be a constant annoyance, a nuisance, a nag, kind of have that, like, I mean, his ability to poke the bear, how would that play off of things? I don't know, man. I like the idea a lot, and I think that there's a lot of different layers that could come from that. What about you, SPD?
I never even thought of a feud with Kingston and Hardy, and the more I'm hearing Booking by Bonds, it's just more and more appealing. Like, it's a great transition once Kingston is done with the main event guys, essentially, you can call them, and it really does. It makes a lot of sense, and I want to know why Butcher, Blade, Kingston kind of went separate paths. You know, I want to know more about that because they kept saying, you know, Kingston always was harping on it's family. We're family. Right. And so family just doesn't randomly break apart and go their separate ways that quickly. You know, there's a reasoning behind it. So
it's also the second time in a couple of months that he's done that.
Yeah. So
I like that.
I want more of that, and then it would make sense,
too,
you know.
right?
Once
I didn't hear that, Mike.
It gives Christian some direction too, other than just focusing mainly on the world title, right? Like, I think that would go a long way, Bonds, in that, like, I think that there's some of the biggest, most vocal critics of the Christian signing have been like, oh, so you're taking a guy, a mid-card, whatever they want to say. We know that Christian has been more than a mid-card guy for a long time.
How many championships?
35.
He's been over 35 championships.
Just want to know.
Yeah,
but it would give him a direction beyond just the world title. It'll allow him to have some actual character motivations and some feuds that would divert him from just solely focusing on Kenny, because Kenny has a lot going on already, right? So I like that idea. I think that would give Christian I think it would also make Christian feel like he's a part of AEW a little bit more, right? It would make him feel like he's integrated into the show more than just this guy who's come in looking to fight Kenny Omega for really no other reason than Kenny's the champion. There's no real motivation. There's no real history between Cage and Omega. This would play off of Christian's backstory and his history, and it would make him feel more immersed into the greater AEW universe. The more I love AEW, the more I watch this product, the more I kind of view it like that the Marvel universe and the different stories and the way that these characters, have their own side stories and their own side movies and things like that, but how
Right.
they
Good
overarch
point.
and they play together. They interact with each other, and I think that Christian and Hardy have that backstory. That's a beautiful play off of you, Bonds, and the psychology of their characters, and it would make Christian immediately. It would make Christian feel like he was integrated into the fabric of this greater story of AEW, rather than just being a guy who wants to go for the gold, which is kind of like a story anybody has, right? This would make him
Right.
feel more at home in the AEW universe. That I like that a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I think that's a good place to. Oh God,
Give it up!
that song never gets old.
Oh, Mitch! Everybody's loving Mitch. My man.
We need to
That's my
promote.
favorite
We need to
song,
start.
guys. Anytime you want to see Mitch make a debut, you just throw on a little Junk Boy. He is happy as can be.
We need a Mitch shirt.
We need to start promoting Mitch, man. Mitch might need his own Twitter handle soon.
Mitch might like MJF might like Mitch more than any of us. I think
Yeah.
he might be a fan. We'll see. Oh shoot.
He probably
Gosh.
does. He doesn't like us. He
Oh,
likes us, but he
God.
doesn't.
If you
Gosh,
could, yeah, I'll SPD. What now that you had your break and you come back, you're refreshed.
water bill is needed paid.
What's hot on your mind, man? Like coming off of Friday Night Fights and Flights is always kind of a very casual show. It's something
Yeah.
that we enjoy, just kind of kicking back. It's just us three hanging out with some friends on social. We got a lot of great fans out there chatting right now. What's a topic that you want to talk about, bro? Are you ready?
I mean, it would. Am I what?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
Honestly, we touched on it briefly, but it wouldn't be an episode of Dynamite Download if we didn't talk about the Murder Hawk. I think like the trajectory of him long term makes most sense. I like this aspect. I mean, he went on almost like this Iron Man streak of awesome match after match after match. I'm not asleep. I'm awake, even though I have to get up really early tomorrow. But the promo interruptions, I think, are working really well. And ultimately, I think down the line, we will see him dethrone Darby. And I think that's really what needs to happen. We don't want to see the gas lifted off, the pedal off the gas on him, because he had such an amazing first couple months of 2021. And so this man, the Murder Hawk monster, deserves to be in the spotlight, deserves to be in the ring. Like, clearly he's putting on these like match of the years and just the stuff that he can do. And I really hope that we see, it was in the comments too, like maybe Cage comes to Sting's rescue ultimately, and then we see a Cage versus Archer match, which would be insane to me. We haven't seen something like that. If you could imagine like Cage picking up Archer and doing some of his amazing like moves or drill claw to Archer. Like I'm
Oh
sure
my
he could.
God.
I'm
Can
sure
you
he
imagine
could.
a drill claw to Lance Archer? Oh my
But
God.
ultimately, Archer's got to come out on top, in my opinion. But even if Archer dethrones Darby, and then he still kind of like wants to send a message and like beat down Sting, then you could instantly do a Archer Cage feud around kind of the TNT title and that. So I think that would be really appealing, as like there's so many layers of feuds that we like, and that's like there's multiple in the women's, then you have the Pinnacle Inner Circle, then you have the main event guys, then you have the tag teams, then you have this, and it's like, oh my gosh, man, it's amazing to me week in week out how they can squeeze this in 2 hours.
Yeah.
What do you think? Where do you think? What do you project Lance, or where do you want him to go from here?
Bonds?
Man, I think that the TNT belt makes a lot of sense for Lance. It just seems built for him. A workhorse that can defend it every week. Darby even said, before he was interrupted, it was, like, I want to start wrestling every week on television. But I think that there's limitations of that. And we've talked about those before with Darby, where he, his offense just kind of leads to playing more defensive role as a wrestler. So being on every week will expose that too much, I think.
Right.
And for Lance Archer, especially if you're making him a heel, which that seems to be the obvious direction. You could have him.
He is the murder hawk. It doesn't matter, heel or face.
Right.
I love that about him.
Right. He can just be himself and it's fine. So like you could kind of have him just play it up no matter who he's against. He could be playing the face of the heel no matter what he's doing. And so you could have him do just feuds, or you have him do, the every week just wrestling somebody else if they want to do that direction with him. And I think that you could have some really cool stuff with Lance in that regard. And again, the Brian Cage thing, that would be a dream match. Seeing those two guys in the ring would be awesome. That's a pay-per-view match.
Yes, it is very pay-per-view worthy.
You talk about two athletic big men.
Right.
Oh my God, man, that would be
Who
amazing.
better?
Who better? Well, maybe the Murder Hawk. I don't know. That would be a heck of a matchup.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, that segment, and this is when I talked about it on Dynamite Download. That segment felt like it had so many different layers going on, and it got lost in the shuffle a little bit with how amazing that main event was, and then in the fire promo by Pinnacle, and some of the things that happened on that show. That TNT title kind of segment, I feel like kind of got lost. But man, there was a lot that happened in that. I personally think where we go with the Murder Hawk, man, he's clearly, I don't know if he's focused on the title. I don't think that he's like, from the vibes that I got watching. I watched the show again. Obviously, my wife wanted to see the Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa match, and I just said Thunder Rosa.
Oh, jeez, salute.
So we watched the show again, and when I rewatched the segment, at first when I was like, all right, like when I first watched live, I thought Lance's he's got his sights on the title, right, on the TNT title. But when I watched it again, it's his MO, and what he continues to harp on is it's about the time. It's about the respect. It's about the recognition. It's about the place on the show and on the card and really on the hierarchy of AEW.
Right.
It's about that putting some respect on Lance Archer's name. And so I don't know if Lance is – you guys, we've talked about, like, there's only so many titles in the landscape of AEW. I don't know if Lance is the guy – that's going to end up getting the TNT title. I think that the TNT title would look really great on MJF, but I think
it would.
I think MJF might be. You have to put some gold in Pinnacle. You have to put some gold in that group, in my opinion. You have to.
For sure.
I think that Lance is going to get in some feuds here with Sting, and I know that's a dream matchup for Lance. I think he's gonna have some great. I think that we could see some matchups with Cage, but I don't know if Lance is gonna end up becoming the TNT champion. I just don't necessarily know if that's in the cards. that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that we've seen SPD, you and I have seen Lance navigate the disappointments of not winning championships. We've seen him, the TNT and the world title. He's shown an ability to bounce back from that and to show that he's still important and prominent and a name worth watching and following and being excited about, even without the gold. And I think that although we as fans of Lance, it would be awesome to see him, especially at this stage of his career. I know, Bonds, you've been harping on that. Like, this is not a young chick. This is not a spring chicken. Lance has gone through a lot in his career. It would be really cool to see him get a title and get a championship run in AEW. I feel like the man deserves it.
Agreed.
I just don't know if he needs that right now. I don't know if that's where his character is going. I think that the title. I personally think that Lance is going to end up getting caught up in a feud with Sting and Darby, but I just don't see him winning the belt.
Okay.
Personally.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
I would love that. I would love it, but I just don't know if Lance is going to be holding the TNT championship. I don't know. Because if Lance takes it, then who beats Lance for that title? I mean, it's going to be a long time.
Nobody.
Right?
Nobody.
Yeah. I just think that Lance – the thing is, AEW is still young, right? And I think that you have to remember that they only have a few championships, but even more important, they only have so many characters that elevate a feud or elevate their opponent just because they're in the match. You know what I mean? Like, bankable guys who are must watch no matter what they're involved in. You know, and SPD, you're the biggest Lance Archer fan in this group, and you can testify. Like, it doesn't matter what he's doing. There's something to be said for a guy who I talked about it, who's that big, that strong, that athletic. He's a must see attraction no matter what he's doing, right?
True.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you make a definitely valid point, and I mean, if Lance was the champ, I could see someone from the Pinnacle kind of like cheating to win to get that belt, you know, MJF, or, you know, like you said, Lori, Wardlow going head to head to really elevate that, or someone new. I mean, you could bring someone in new to AEW, and that leads us to, you know, a question that we're going to talk about, you know, to end the show for this night. Like, who would you want to bring over to AEW? Like, if you could recruit from any establishment, a male, a female, or a tag team to join AEW, like, who would you want to do? I want to bring. And, you know, for male, just right off the top of my head, you know, like, obviously I would like to see like Daniel Bryan come over. He'd be such a great fit. But more realistically, I think it would be cool to have, which we've seen rumors and talked about, like Aleister Black over, you know, someone like his prestige, you know, like this whole tattooed, like mystery, like weird, dark guy would be like a whole nother layer to AEW. You know, Daniel Bryan is just one of my absolute favorites, which we'll talk either next week about our Mount Rushmore male performers. Which, since we did Mount Rushmore female last week, so we need a lot of time to do that. Maybe we can get some graphics going. So I think Aleister Black or Daniel Bryan to the male, but to piggyback on the Mount Rushmore, I'm a big fan of Charlotte Flair, so I think her coming over. Could you imagine Jade and Charlotte Flair in the ring together?
That's a great call by you, bro. That's a great call.
Two of like the most physique women in wrestling.
Charlotte gets a lot of heat on social. A lot of people like talk smack about Charlotte, but I hear you, bro. I've always been a Charlotte fan, and you put those two in the ring together. Yeah. You're right. What a physical matchup that could be.
Huge.
Damn, dude, that's an awesome call by you, bro. That
was just
a good pick.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And that would be wishful thinking. So for tag team, I got to come back to that. So if you guys want to throw in any of your male, female, or tag teams, go right ahead, and then I'll think about my tag team.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So for females, I mean, I have two names that come to mind. Obviously, I think Sasha Banks is the biggest female superstar outside of Britt Baker.
Do your Sasha Banks impression.
I gotta go get the glasses. Sasha Banks, I feel like, is the biggest female superstar in all of professional wrestling, other than Britt Baker, and so I would think that a personality like that would be incredible. That's a pipe dream.
Mhm.
I could see. I'm a big advocate for the four horsewomen, right? And so I'm naturally going to be inclined to go down that path. Becky Lynch in AEW would be an amazing fit. She's physical. She's got that scrappiness to her. I'm automatically thinking about the different potential matchups that Becky could have, and kind of her like her swagger, right? Like the man persona. It's been a while since we've seen Becky, but like, that swagger as a natural cocky baby face in the women's division going against Britt would be a real compelling matchup. I think that would be really fun. So immediately I say either Sasha or Becky, depending on what, my dream pick would be Sasha, but I think that Becky could her in-ring style seems to fit a lot with AEW. Just, we saw that women's main event and the amount of bloodshed that those women put themselves through. Becky had that moment I'll always remember where she got busted open by Nia Jax, and she's standing out in the crowd, just face full of blood. It's just a natural fit. She's just kind of got that badass vibe to her. I think she'd be a lot of fun in AEW. As far as men go, I'll be honest with you guys. There's a lot of people that when I look at the landscape of the global wrestling community, I think that Jay White would be a lot of fun. There's a lot of characters. New Japan has got, like, the more that AEW has dabbled with their relationship with New Japan, the more I've gotten interested in it. And I think that Jay White would be a lot of fun given his character work, his confidence. The dude has got he's got it all. But the guy that I'm, I guess, more familiar with than Jay White, but it reminds me a lot of Jay White the more that I watch Jay White, is Seth Rollins. I just see a lot of parallels between those guys. Bonds, you and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but I think that Seth Rollins would be such an awesome fit in AEW. Just like, the dude grew up in the Indies. His in-ring style is just phenomenal. He can work with big men, little guys. He can be a babyface. He can be a heel. I'm a big Seth Rollins fan. I think that he would be seamless transition into AEW. I don't know if right now I'm picking the couple, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch. Maybe AEW coach that couple away from WWE. That would be a dream for me.
Is it also your tag team?
That would be my tag team would be Becky and Seth. As the tag team guy, I got to think about that one a little bit.
It's hard for me because, I've grown so fond to the tag teams developed in AEW, and I have been so anti WWE for a while now, just because of this staleness of the product, and I can't think of a tag team that I enjoy to watch non AEW right now, and I don't think they would fit. I love them for what they are, but like the New Day, I really like them. And I just loved like their aspect of just their comediness and their just everything about them. But I don't think that type of comedy does not fit in AEW at all. So I don't have a tag team at this point.
It's understandable that you don't too, because like I know you're mostly a North American wrestling fan. And to be honest with you, WWE does not they do not put a lot of love into their tag division, bro. Like there's not a lot of respect on that division. They don't put a lot of investment in building up that division at all. That's why I love AEW so much. Is that the tag team wrestling is it's so different how they're treated. I do think that man, Bonds, do you have a tag team do you have any?
Yeah, I can go if you guys
Go
are still
ahead.
thinking. So I'll start with my tag team, the Briscoe brothers, Jay and Mark. Briscoe Ring of Honor. Any Ring of Honor fans out there, you guys know them. I think they're 11 or 12 time champs. They've been around forever, and they're great. I've watched them in bingo halls. They're so entertaining, and they're a perfect fit for AEW. They're a perfect fit.
I love that pick.
Yeah, they'd be a dream pick because they're as good as any tag team around, and they've been around forever.
Those guys are
Yeah, they're crazy. They're crazy.
Can you imagine them backing down from FTR? I don't think so.
No,
that would be badass,
they would
bro.
go after
That's a
them
great pick. That's a great pick, bro. I really like the Briscoe. That's a really good pick. My mind was my first pick was honestly I was starting to go towards Montez Ford, and like that. Like how they could play off a private party, that would be a really nice feud. Like I think that their in-ring styles would be really great, but Briscoe Brothers is way better pick, bro. That's an awesome pick.
Oh yeah, you need to watch them, SPD, if you haven't checked them out. They're great.
Please send me a link. I have not watched them at all. I'm not familiar with them. Sorry.
After the show, that'll be the first thing. For male pick, Kevin Owens. You didn't steal my thunder, Crayfish. Big Kevin Owens guy. Always have been. Always will be. He's going to be, a guy that I always advocate for. I think he's one of the best in the world. Always have since again Ring of Honor stuff. We've been watching him for 15 years, and he's just a guy that's always been a top tier competitor. I mean, his team ups with El Generico back there and Sami Zayn were just some great matches.
You're right.
Like, again, we've seen him live. He main evented this NXT takeover show that Crayfish and I went to a couple of years ago, and it was right in the heart of the John Cena feud when he first came up to the main roster. And oh man, he was cutting some awesome promos. I would love to see him and Eddie Kingston feud. That would be an amazing feud.
That would be.
I think that would just be so fun.
Yeah.
And for women, I probably would say Sasha Banks as well. She's the biggest star, and she's just so good. I would love to see her and Britt go at it. And their mic battles.
Fire. They would spit some mad fire.
Females, like just that mentality, very confident, got that swagger. They're not going to back down from each other. My mind was with Sasha too. I mean, you're talking about my two. To me, my Mount Rushmore, my favorites are Britt and Sasha. I've never been more of a mark for women wrestlers than those two. I'm with you on that, dude. Really good calls by you, bro. Those are really, really, really good picks.
Thanks.
I think that's a good way to end the show. I think that we kind of go.
I agree.
Bonds. Nice calls by you, man. Here's the Bonds, man. Booking by Bonds, my man. Nice call.
I think we should brainstorm. I know we talked about this early on in Friday Night Flights and Fights, how we could do a watch along match. Maybe we can put a match on next week and see if we can side stream it with the audio and do a watch along of one of like an early match of Eddie Kingston or someone like that. If anyone has any suggestions of a watch along match that we can watch, even Mindrunner, or even like an early Kenny Omega match or something like that. So if you guys are open for that, we would all be for like a watch along match. That's not an hour Iron Man one, but so we can get our typical topics in. But I think we could do that. If we decided to watch along match, we can start things off casual, and then we, maybe about the 10:30 time slot, we put on the match. So send us a message on Twitter or, comment, and we'll get some, and it'll be a fresh watch. So if we decide on it, it'll be fresh eyes. Ones we have not seen before would be pretty cool too. So we have, some original, fresh reactions. I'm
going to put this on Brian. I think that Brian Rosano would be a great guy to help us. I think that it's important because we are AEW Dynamite Download. I think that our first watch along should be Kenny Omega. It should be dedicated to our world champion.
Okay.
It should be dedicated
I'm all for it.
let's watch an awesome Kenny Omega match. And I think that there's nobody who's better at that. Brian would be more than he'd be a great guy to help us get us in that Kenny Omega mindset. If Brian could hook us up with a little Kenny match that we should check out, that'd be great. Bonds, I know that you and I have talked about maybe like we've seen some cool stuff with Kenny and my guy Seth Rollins and Bryan Danielson. There's been some cool stuff, but maybe we go down that path. Maybe with Jay White. Maybe we check out Jay White versus Kenny Omega. My pick for adding to AEW.
I don't know anything about Jay White, so
yeah, and SPD. I think that you would really. I mean, I know that you haven't checked out Jay White and New Japan, but I really do believe the more that I've watched Jay White's work, he's right up your alley, bro. I think that Jay White versus Kenny Omega could be a great one that we could maybe watch. So we'll see where that goes. I also think that, next week's show with Dynamite is going to leave us with a lot more topics too, guys. And we know that next week's show has some stuff that we're excited about. So yeah, I mean, Friday Night Fights and Flights, fellas. Let's get a cheers. Let's go one more.
Cheers to the weekend.
Cheers.
Thank
Cheers
you,
to the
everyone.
weekend.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. As
Always
always, it's a highlight of our week. We love to let loose and look forward to the weekend and spending a couple hours with you guys every single weekend. So, thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.